Today's podcast is sponsored by Community Boost, a digital marketing agency empowering social ventures changing the world. Community Boost invites you to join the Nonprofit Marketing Summit, Fundraise to the Future, for free on August 16th through 18th. It's the biggest virtual conference for nonprofit marketers. You'll be joined by 20,000 like-minded professionals as we step into the future of digital strategy. And you'll be learning from leaders like Mallory Erickson, Amy Sample Ward, Adrian Sargent, Meta, TikTok, myself, and many more. Get your free ticket to the future at www.nonprofitmarketingsummit.org. See you there. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Nation. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and I'm going to sit down with nonprofit industry experts, fundraisers, marketers, and everyone in between to get real and discuss what it takes to build that movement that you've been dreaming of. I created the Nonprofit Nation podcast to share practical wisdom and strategies to help you confidently find your voice, definitively grow your audience, and effectively build your movement. If you're a nonprofit newbie or an experienced professional who's looking to get more visibility, reach more people, and create even more impact, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us at the Nonprofit Nation podcast. Thanks for having us in your earbuds today. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and today my guest is Cameron Ripley, the CEO of Community Boost, a digital marketing agency that exists to empower social ventures changing the world. And I've done a lot of work with Community Boost, and I love them. And just in the past year, their team has directly served over 350 nonprofits and generated over $200 million in online donations, which is amazing. They're trusted by the Equal Justice Initiative, the Cancer Research Institute, Charity Water, and Kiva, and many other great causes. And they're committed to helping the social sector scale online revenue and impact, which is so important. Cameron also founded the Nonprofit Marketing Summit, which has helped inspire and educate over 40,000 nonprofit leaders since its launch in 2020. And I have spoken at the Nonprofit Marketing Summit and always enjoyed it. Love the content, love the speakers, and really love the interaction. So welcome, Cameron. I'm so happy you're here.
Well, thank you, Julia. And I really appreciate the kind words. And to correct one thing, last year we helped raise directly 20 million, not 200 million. The organizations we work with certainly had a incredible impact and revenue, like certainly beyond that. But as far as like our specific efforts,
your efforts probably with the summit and with all of the other fantastic free resources that you provide, I'm sure that you are responsible for at least $200 million. So, well, we'll keep it in. But thanks for correcting that. So I want to ask you, how did you get into this work, digital marketing, digital fundraising with nonprofits?
Sure. I mean, I could obviously go either a short version or a much longer version. I'll try to keep it short. But so I studied marketing and entrepreneurship. I went to University of Arizona. It's definitely known as a party school, which it certainly was, but we actually had a really good entrepreneurship program, and I was really passionate about it. It was number 2 in the country, and basically everyone in that program, was faculty selected, was trying to, create the next Facebook and raise a ton of venture capital. And my group for over a year built out a nonprofit called SAFE, stood for Senior Advice and Financial Education, and we were focused on preventing elderly financial abuse. And we ended up giving a lot of that 501c3 and nonprofit we built out to another organization doing similar work. But that was my first exposure in the space. I wasn't quite ready to, found a nonprofit at that point, but I learned a lot about the sector. And then I launched an e-commerce company that ultimately failed. At a certain point, I was having a quarter life crisis, and I won't give you all the details, but I needed a change, and I needed to learn more about digital marketing, and realize while I even studied marketing, I didn't know that much about it. And that's why my e-commerce company failed. And so I basically moved out to San Diego for an unpaid internship, and we got brought in to learn, we learned marketing and digital and entrepreneurship, and then we applied that to nonprofits. And so I got hired at that company, and we started managing these, $100,000 per month ad budgets, but we were focused in on the startup tech space. We're working with these fast growing customers, but my heart was always in that internship, and I started running that program. I loved doing nonprofit marketing, and at a certain point, realized we had a big vision of how we could impact the social sector. And so I basically, left but didn't, and started incubating Community Boost, founded it at that point, and was able to work out of their offices. And, that was 10 years ago.
Wow. So I know in the podcast prep document, I wrote down the question that I like to ask my guests: what are you most passionate about? And you seem to have told me some of the things that you're most passionate about. And the work that I've seen Community Boost do, it seems that you're incredibly passionate about scaling impact and helping nonprofits scale. So is that correct? What are some other things that you're passionate about?
Certainly. I think if we can market anything, right, I want to market things that matter, that are life enriching and life saving. So certainly passionate about that. And we work with all different types of missions, all different parts of the social sector. So I love taking those learnings and applying them to other causes. But, I think even in the heart and genesis of the founding of Community Boost was, for the first time in my life, when I did that program in my mid-20s, was first time in my life I had true mentorship. And, my personal why is to instill and inspire care, compassion, and commitment in others to make the world a better place. And while at Community Boost, we might call ourselves consultants, really we're just teachers, and we're humbled by the organizations we get to work with and the leaders we get to work with, and we get to really teach and work together on what we're mastering, which is digital. So I really love the talent development piece. I'm really, our company has had different life cycles, but at 60 team members and counting, a lot of my passion now is on culture. I've been a huge student of the best companies in the world and the purpose-driven companies and all these things, even before we had employees. And so, if I can make our team and deliver the best employee experience possible, then ultimately we're having the biggest impact for our different causes, which is ultimately, what, I'm really passionate about doing, and our team's really passionate about doing. So, I just try to lean into that purpose. And, there's specific causes that are sectors I'm always passionate about, but I'm always trying to, be a student of that too. And the demands and needs of the world are constantly changing as well. And it's been cool to see all sorts of different missions emerge and tackle some of the most insurmountable problems, right? That's what we do in the nonprofit space, is we fill that gap between public and private.
So I recently read your nonprofit acceleration report, and I thought it was really interesting. There's some fantastic findings. I found it really hopeful. I thought the prediction of 43% of nonprofits surveyed in this report thought that they would grow their revenue 4 to 15%. And based on the unprecedented nature of the times we're living in and huge spikes in inflation, I thought that was actually really positive. So what did you hope to uncover when you created this report? And I know there's a focus on digital in this report, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting. This is certainly our first one. We were running our fourth nonprofit marketing summit in 2 years, and we had upwards of 18,000 registrations, and we're like, we should pulse this group. Let's get more input, which can then craft our content and help us provide more value. And so that was really why we did it. And hopefully it continues to build. I think it was 439 organizations. So it's, not the largest sample size, but we hope to continue to grow it. But yet I still think there's a lot of valuable insights. So, yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. We're coming off of this, some unprecedented years, to use that term once again, and change, and this huge acceleration into digital. We had certain organizations that had, tremendous challenges, of course, their models really impacted, and then other organizations receiving actually tremendous amount of support too. And so there was a lot of change, and we just wanted to see how people were feeling and what they were looking to prioritize as far as growth, and trying to better understand their challenges. So, we can all collectively work through those together.
So, what did you find in terms of trends? What were some of the challenges and some of the trends you thought were most interesting?
Yeah. So, I think some were certainly what I think a lot of us would expect. 45% of nonprofit leaders say that limited time is their biggest challenge when it comes to marketing, followed by 23% say it's limited budget is their biggest challenge when it comes to marketing. 12% says it's a lack of tech and education. Obviously things we expect, like email is very important, social media is very important, SEO, direct mail, right? All important still, of course. 60% of organizations had at least 4 social media accounts. 98% are on Facebook. 83% of nonprofits are on Instagram, right? Like those are all things, I would say we expect. But some of the trends I think were, most interesting were the nonprofits that are expecting the most growth, over 15% of total revenue, have an increased likelihood of investing and or testing and driving more growth through like Google ads and meta ads. So, we had asked nonprofits like what channels they were most likely to try this year. And the top 2 were Google ads at 46% and Facebook ads at 47%. But when we segmented out the nonprofits who are expecting the largest increases in revenue of over 15%, those numbers actually really increased of 59% to Google ads and 55% into Facebook. So, that's definitely an interesting takeaway, right? Like those that are, anticipating the most revenue growth are diversifying their channels more. There's probably more of a root reason as to why that is. We could keep digging in, but I think in general, those are just some of the things that definitely came to mind.
I find it so interesting that so many organizations, the majority had at least 4 social media accounts, because I think this goes back to the point of 45% of leaders saying they have limited time. And with my clients, I really encourage them to say less is more, and to really sort of go, rather than an inch deep and a mile wide, to rather dive deeper and use more of the features or use more of maybe the advertising platforms and some of the benefits of each of these channels, rather than sort of maybe dipping their toe into 4 social media accounts. I think it's not surprising, of course, that 98% are on Facebook, because that is sort of the biggest, that's the king of social media right now, I think, for nonprofits. But with Google ads, I was actually really surprised to see that a lot of the nonprofits said they were likely to try Google ads this year. Do you think that is because of the Google Ad for Nonprofits program? Is that how the majority of organizations are leveraging Google ads?
I think it come to Google ads, right? Like I would definitely prioritize the Google ad grant. It's free budget, $10,000 per month, $120,000 a year. So, and we can use it quickly, right? But, where a lot of organizations struggle is using it really effectively. And I do think you bring up a good point, right? It's just an interesting debate of, we only have so much resources. How do we use them within marketing? How do we use them within even a tactic like social media? We could dive even deeper into that. I think it really comes down to the life cycle, or where an organization's at in both their own phase of existence and resources, but also in what their strengths are, like what type of team that they have, what type of content they're best at.
Do you think that ads on Meta, which of course Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, do you think that the effectiveness of those ads is changing? Are they getting more expensive? These are just all sort of things that I've heard, speculation around privacy concerns and of course iOS changes and things like that.
Definitely. It's the whole, digital space is just very fast moving now and changing. And, I think we're close to iOS 16. And so it's definitely been a lot to navigate. I think with meta ads, they're still very important. And, I'm not just saying that because we do them. It's just one of the strongest ROI drivers we see both for donor retention as well as even donor acquisition. But tracking's gotten more difficult, and how we track, how we report has evolved. And so, even like we just did our nonprofit ad day yesterday, and we did a whole session on like offline conversion tracking reporting and like why that's important. And then, yeah, and it's a lot to manage when you do have, limited time, right? And resources to have that type of support. But the channel itself definitely works, right? Like marketing is being where people's attention is at. And whether we like it or not, it's definitely a lot on Facebook, a lot on Instagram, and it's still definitely a powerful channel. And a lot of, social has just become pay to play. And so it just gives us so much more reach on our content.
So what's the latest data about what strategies work, and really where should we prioritize? Not even in terms of necessarily platforms, but what strategies should we really prioritize?
The findings are from our report, and I encourage people to check it out. I think if you go to accelerationreport.org, it'll take you to the download. But I would say, for me, a lot of my insight or even opinions on channels and strategies, I would say would come even more from the 400 to 500 nonprofits we're supporting this year. And I think with in 2022, there's been three main themes for me as far as strategy, which would be diversification, performance, and privacy. So with diversification, last year really taught us anything is we just can't put all our eggs in one marketing channel basket.
Like the golf tournament?
Right, exactly. And so it's just more important than ever for us to just be constantly testing, build an agile team, and to grow results in multiple marketing platforms, ideally, and channel opportunities. And then we have performance. And while tracking has changed, right? Like we're in this unprecedented time for advertising with some of the reporting and data and targeting that was available. And it shifted likely for the better for long term, right? And it's a change for marketers, but it's still performance when it comes to marketing, right? Like all advertising is going digital. All digital is measurable in some way. And therefore, all advertising is performance. And so this idea of like breaking that all down between, direct response and, brand and all these things. I understand that strategy, but I think like the digital world is now more fully omni-channel. It's not just this straight funnel. And we have to holistically focus on brand while driving our top line performance and revenue. And then last is privacy. I think that like we just can't ignore it. And even though, for example, Google is pushing back, kind of crumbling their own, cookie and pixel, it's already here. It's not leaving. It's a privacy by default world we're in now as digital marketers. And that first party data is just mission critical. And so our technology, our customer data platforms, our CRM, our donation platforms, those are the price of entry now to do effective marketing.
Exactly. Where should we be spending our time? Such a subjective question.
Right. Like I hate to say it depends, but I do think that it does depend where your organization is at in that journey, what your strengths are as a team, right? And ultimately marketing is being where people's attention is at and being powerful storytellers. And so we can do a lot of that content in all sorts of ways, right? Like if we're a small team, but our founders really, our executive directors got a lot of energy. Let's put them on video, right? Like let's create that type of content and put that out into social and our emails and these things. Or maybe we're strong with like writing or design or audio, right? And like we're doing podcasts. So just kind of, it depends, I hate to say that, but as far as the growth channels, I think it comes down to, right, like we have to do the cornerstone channels really well. They're still important, right? So our storytelling, a decent website, our email, and then as we get that down, as we're fundraising outside of friends and family, and we're building campaigns that are compelling, that's when we can really look into the ad channels and these other tactics that we can. That's where we like put step on the accelerators, where we put gas on the campaigns.
And I think you and I have a very similar philosophy in that nonprofits need to be more proactive than reactive. and this is something I teach, and this is something I, evangelize and speak about all the time, is how we've spent, and I think too many nonprofits still react, or shift gears midstream. That's probably not the best metaphor, but we shift tactics based on like how the winds are blowing rather than creating a digital marketing strategy and system that's based on our infrastructure, our budget, our audience, our priorities, our goals. And we're constantly chasing the shiny new thing. We're constantly changing what we're doing based on whatever's in the news that day. So where should we really prioritize our time and our effort, our time and our treasure? Because like you said before, you touched on this, what if your marketing team is part of your development team? How can we convince, I guess a better question is, how can we convince higher ups to invest in marketing as its own maybe department, or its own sort of, it has its own budget and its own people that are working on it?
Yeah, I mean, well, you bring up a, a topic I've been definitely thinking a lot about lately. And, we are in this digital world that's just moving faster and faster. And like nonprofit marketing is hard. It's arguably one of the hardest things to market. It's, we're not just running ads to sell shoes that someone then just gets in 2 days. We're often asking them to like serve the greater community and, give their own treasure just because they care about our cause and our impact and care about others. And so, it's challenging, but I really think that there's this marketing gap. And I mean, this is, my opinion, and obviously it's a blanket statement, it doesn't apply to every cause, right? But, I think that there's this marketing gap where the demands of what's now required for nonprofit growth has just fundamentally changed, and it's just changing faster and faster. And I think in today's digital world, nonprofit leaders' biggest challenges are now more of a marketing problem than a development problem. Yet most causes are run by leadership that came up through development. And it's nothing wrong with that, but it's not like modern marketing. And so, I think leadership the whole C-suite has to like really invest in that, believe in that, trust their marketing team. Hopefully we can build one out, and then to trust them and not like micromanage. And the goal is an agile team, like to just have a team. You're totally right? Like we have to have goals. We have to have a clear strategy. We need to execute. We need to know our numbers. We're, pivoting as needed, but we're persevering, like trusting in our strategy and our campaigns, right? Based on our resources. But we have to try to just, again, have an agile team. And because how people use the internet, right? It's like this massive opportunity where there's more people online than ever. They're consuming more time and content than ever. But yet it's this huge challenge where everyone's attention is just in so many things. So it's a huge opportunity for nonprofits, but also one of the biggest challenges. So that's a lot of like high level, I guess, theory on that. And hopefully it's some talking points. But as far as like where to prioritize, I mean, I think most organizations, especially emerging organizations, just have to really start. We need to not get caught up in paralysis by analysis.
Oh, paralysis analysis. Yep. Or I like to call it procrasti-learning. Just learning and watching 50 YouTube videos and not actually acting.
Exactly. Like we just have to produce, and not every piece of content's going to be perfect, but also I promise you, no one's going to remember what you posted yesterday, right? It's not like we're building this perfect flyer for the, what'd you say, like golf tournament or something you mentioned. It's content, and we do need to lean more into volume, and it's storytelling at the key of all of it, right? And like that's why people are glued to their devices and phones, but I'm overly optimistic, but I feel like as nonprofit marketers, we can be the hope and the positivity people are seeking in the world, that makes them feel really good. And then we can get that awareness, get in front of them multiple times, like whether that's via digital or email, And then from there, we start to scale as we know our numbers and we figure out our marketing strengths, and we ultimately figure out like what's compelling into our audience.
I love that. I love the tips because a lot of my audience, they come from a tiny team or they come from a nonprofit with very few resources, or maybe a board or an executive director that's not as on board with digital marketing or digital fundraising.
To that point, though, like development and marketing, I just wanted to expand on that. I mean, I do think step one is like building a strong development system. And, like marketing is so much more effective, like when we've gotten that down. But having one person try to do it all is not in the best interest of the organization's growth, in my opinion. I think they're really different skill sets. But, development is step one. But then from there, we can really layer on the marketing piece to really, feed that development person basically, leads and people to have conversations with, right?
Oh, absolutely. I really feel very strongly about the different skill sets and the different tactics and strategies required to be successful in nonprofit marketing and nonprofit fundraising. And I also want to touch on something else that you said that reminds me of my favorite author. Everyone's heard me talk about him a million times, Seth Godin, but he wrote a book called Permission Marketing years and years ago. And that's the era that we are actually in right now. It's like you said, privacy is absolutely paramount. And people are valuing their privacy more and more and more. So this constant spamming, this constant, purchasing of email lists or even mailing lists, all of that is going to be incredibly irrelevant because a lot of the ads that we're seeing and a lot of the content we're seeing is very personalized. It's also very relevant to us. So if we're seeing something completely irrelevant to us, it's going to be immediately suspect and we're going to be marked as a spammer. So I think building up that trust is huge for marketers. And we need to focus more on building communities that would follow us from platform to platform than we do just simply acquiring Facebook likes. Are you seeing the same thing?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think that's really a solid point. I mean, you hit it with that word community. I think we need to be really community centric within our marketing efforts, and our supporters, our investors in our mission, right? So like with community, we can share the impact we've been making. We can lower churn. We can increase, donor lifetime value. But yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. And we have to ultimately, like if we want people to care, we have to make them care. We have to enroll them through our marketing, through our content, and not just spam asking for them. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Oh, no, absolutely. So how can we scale our impact? What are some of the best ways that we can use? Oh, and also, is TikTok something we can use to scale our impact right now? This is a question I get all the time.
I don't want to overpromise, but I think we're going to have the TikTok team speaking at our next nonprofit marketing summit. And at minimum, we're going to have sessions on it. But, I think, again, marketing is being where people's attention is at. And if your demographics of your supporters are on TikTok, or even your beneficiaries of your programming, I think you should definitely pay attention to it. I mean, you can definitely go viral on it, but also, again, we only have so much time to budget. So, it comes back to your goals and what you're, trying to hit on. And there's we do a lot of ad management, and, there's a TikTok ad capability, but we're really encouraging people to just, get used to it organically. If you have, the people that are passionate about it in house, if it makes sense for who you're targeting. That's my thoughts on TikTok currently, but I don't think it can be ignoring it as a nonprofit marketer.
Are there any other emerging platforms we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, time right now. I think for us, once you have the basics there of email, site, storytelling, decent user flow. I mean, we're still doing a lot of what our customers are asking for. We're doing a ton of Google Ad Grants management still. I mean, the power of search intent works. We're certainly doing a lot of meta advertising or Facebook and Instagram advertising, to really amplify our social efforts as well. And it certainly converts. As far as things that have existed, but we're getting more demand for, we're doing a lot of YouTube advertising now. I think like 62% of US internet users go on YouTube daily, and people's attention is there. And, we're able to run ads where only if somebody watches 30 seconds are we paying for that view. So it's really like fractions of a cent per view. So it's really good for brand awareness. And so that's kind of within the paid Google side. We're doing some LinkedIn ads, which has been interesting in testing. That's different based on our goals. But, I wouldn't say there's some, really shiny new channel outside of TikTok that is, piqued my interest. I think it's just doing what's proven and doing it better, and then working on, compelling creative and messaging. I think we're needing to like revisit that as nonprofit marketers, and how can we continue to just, stay top of mind. And then back to your point on like community, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to leverage, different parts of whether it's a social platform or, other tools to build like a more engaged community that we can rally around our campaigns.
That's wonderful. I love that. On that note, where can people find more about Community Boost and you, Cameron?
Well, you can always visit communityboost.org. If you're interested in working with our team, you can get a strategy session, a one-on-one strategy session there. We also are trying to, really amp up our content and providing value for, while it's cool to work with 100 couple organizations a year, it's cooler to help thousands. And so we do a lot of content on communityboost.org. We also have our Nonprofit Marketing Summit, which you can find at nonprofitmarketingsummit.org. Our next one's in August, and we would love everyone to attend, and it's free to come, and as well as many other thought leaders and amazing causes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hey, well, Julia, thank you. Thank you for doing this. I think it's amazing content. Congrats on just all the momentum around it. And I really appreciate all you do for the space. I really mean that. I love how you have a voice and around like what you stand for, and obviously provide so much value for our sector. So we appreciate you.
Well, words of affirmation, that is my love language. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Julia.
Well, hey there. I wanted to say thank you for tuning into my show and for listening all the way to the end. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. I would love if you left me a rating or a review, because this tells other people that my podcast is worth listening to. And then me and my guests can reach even more earbuds and create even more impact. So that's pretty much it. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. But until then, you can find me on Instagram at Julia Campbell 77. Keep changing the world, you nonprofit unicorn.